This week in CIST 2612, we're going to look at Chapter 11, Email and Social Media Investigations. So in this chapter, the objectives are to explain the role of email in investigations, describe client and server roles in email, describe tasks in investigating email crimes and violations, explain the use of email server logs, describe how some specialized email forensic tools, and also we're going to explain how to apply digital forensic methods to investigating social media communication. First, we're going to look at the role of email investigations. Now, because we have an increase in email scams and fraud attempts, especially with phishing or spoofing emails, the investigators need to know how to examine and interpret the unique content of email messages. Phishing emails are going to contain links to text on a web page. What they do is they try to attempt to gain personal information from the reader. So it's an type of email scam that's typically sent as spam, soliciting personal identity information that then the fraudsters can use for identity theft. Now, part of this too is pharming. That's a type of email scam where readers might go to the correct website address, but there is DNS poisoning. It takes them to a fake site. And you see here that a noteworthy email scam was 419, or the Nigerian scam. What that was is a email came in claiming to be a Nigerian prince, and they wanted to share this reward with you and give you millions of dollars. Spoofing emails, these can be used to commit fraud. A clue to whether an email is fake in the enhanced extended simple mail transfer protocol, the investigators can use the number in that message header to check for the legitimacy of the email. And the enhanced extended simple mail transport protocol, that's an enhancement of SMTP for sending and receiving email messages. The ESMTP will generate a unique, non-repeatable number that's added to a transmitted email. No two messages transmitted from an email server have the same ESMTP value. Now, emails, as we're going to look at the role of a client and server in email, the emails are going to be sent and received in two environments. They can be either sent by the internet or an intranet, which is an internal network. When we look at the client-server architecture, that's a network architecture in which each computer or process on the network is a client or server. What this does, the client is going to request services from a server, and a server processes the request from those clients. So you have server operating systems and email software, and those are different from those on the client side. You also have protected accounts. So those are ones that will require username and passwords. So let's look at an example of an email and a client-server architecture. So this one, you have a Windows server. It runs an email server program. Something such as Microsoft Exchange Server is going to provide the email addresses. The client computers uses the email program such as Microsoft Outlook. And they use that to contact the email server and send a retrievable email message. Then users access their email based on permissions that the email server administrator grants. So, for example, the client asking us, "Does you have mail for me?" The email server says, "Yes, here it is," and sends it back. So then the client reads this on a program such as Microsoft Outlook. Now, naming conventions, these are something that exists in both the corporate and private. Let's see the example of the corporate of john.smith at somecompany.com. The public can be whatever the name you choose, at gmail.com, at aol.com, yahoo.com. Everything after the @ sign is going to belong to the domain name. Because of this, it does become easier to trace corporate emails. When you're tracing corporate emails, it's easier because you have a standard name convention that an administrator is going to establish, such as the john.smith at somecompany.com. Now with this, a lot of companies are migrating their email servers to the cloud. So it has added a layer of complexity for investigations. Now, when we're investigating email crimes and violations, these are something that will be similar to other types of investigations of computer abuse and crimes. We do have some goals of email crimes and violation investigations, and these include finding out who is behind the crime or violation, collecting the evidence, present your findings, and then build a case. Now, whatever is considered a crime or policy violation involving email addresses will depend on the city, the state, or country in which the email originated. Investigators should know that the privacy laws for the jurisdiction, so one of those may be like the Electronic Communication Privacy Act or the Stored Communication Acts, and how they apply to email. Electronic Communication Privacy Act is also referred to as ECPA. That was a law that was enacted in 1986 to extend the Wiretap Act to cover email and other data transmitted via the internet. Well, the Stored Communications Act, that's part of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, that extends privacy to stored communications, such as email as well. All right, so as we just stated that it's going to depend on what city or state you're in, whether or not, or the country, whether or not the type of email is actually a crime. It's a good idea to always consult with an attorney. Now, the following are some examples of crimes that you may see with involving emails: drug trafficking, extortion, sexual harassment or stalking, fraud, child abductions and pornography, and also terrorism. So those are examples of crimes that you may run across that involve email. All right, forensic logistics. The International Association of Forensic Logistics divides the field in 4 categories. You have language and laws, you have language in the legal process, language is evidence, and then research/teaching. So forensic logistics, that's a related field where the language and law intersect. This does, it trains people to listen to voice recordings to determine who's speaking, and read emails and other writings known to be by a certain person. And then you can use that to determine whether that person wrote the emails or letters that are in question. This is something that's also going to encompass civil cases, criminal cases, cyber terrorism cases, and other legal proceedings that you may encounter. Okay, so we look at examining email messages. It may be something where we need to access a victim's computer or mobile device to recover evidence. You may be examining emails through the victim's email client. When you do this, you want to make sure you find and copy any potential evidence. You want to access any protected or encrypted material. Also print the email. Maybe something where you need to guide the victims on the phone to open and copy email headers. You may also have to go in and recover any deleted emails. Now, when you copy an email message, this is something you do before you start any email investigation. You copy and print the email involved in the crime or policy violation. I would also recommend to forward the message as an attachment to another email address. With many GUI email programs, you can make a copy of the email by dragging it to a storage medium or by saving it in a different location. We're going to look at email headers. Email headers, you want to make sure that you copy and paste them in a text document. So that's something you can read them with a text editor. And also, it's a good idea to become as familiar with as many email programs as possible, because a lot of times you'll have more than one email program installed. So we're going to look at a couple different ways to view email headers. First on Outlook, you'll double click the message and then click File and then Properties. And then there you can copy the headers, paste them in any text editors. And then you can save the document as Outlook header.txt in the work folder. You see an example here of an Outlook email header. Gmail's, the way to access Gmail headers has changed slightly. And that's one of the things you'll notice with examining the email headers is that from time to time, especially web-based, they are changed. The way to access. Open with Notepad, and it says it's by default. It's not necessarily by default. Click OK. So we're going to examine this. I pulled up one of my email messages through the Google account. So you see I have the reply button here. And instead of the down arrow, they've now made it 3 dots. Same process then here. I can come in, but show original. So then I've got my information that can be downloaded and saved into, see my file type is going to be email message. I'll click this, it's going to open up. In this case, I've got it set for Outlook as the default. Let me minimize some things here real quick. So on this, when I come in, I'm going to open it, and I'm going to choose Open With. Choose another app. I'm going to choose Notepad. Okay, so now I have this downloaded, the information. I can see who it was delivered to, when it was received. And if I scroll down in here, I can actually see the message itself. You can see, I can see the styling of the message. So all kinds of information you can gain from this. but it has changed a little bit. Just the down arrow has changed to the 3 dots. We see an example of the viewing the header in Yahoo. Now these headers do contain useful information. The main piece of information you're looking for is the originating email's IP address. You can also find that the date and time the message was sent, file names of any attachments, and if it's supplied a unique message number. Let's read an example again here. Now, depending on the settings, emails are saved on the client side, or it can be left on the server. For example, Microsoft emails saves emails in a .pst and a .ost file. Web-based emails are saved as web pages in the browser's cache folder. And also, though, many web-based emails providers also offer some type of instant messaging service that you will have to search through as well. Now, you see that the following sites here, these are registry sites to find a point of contact. So you may have to track down a suspect using the information acquired from the email. So if you need to determine the message origin, we need to determine that it's referred to as tracing. From there, you would contact the administrator responsible for the sending server, which you can use these information here to find that contact. From there, you verify your findings by checking network email logs against email addresses. Now, the information contained on one network router and firewall logs, they can help an investigation investigator track down a suspect. We'll see on 11.5 the Windows Fire log for information that we can use. We can see where the servers come from, what was accessed, whether it was inbound, outbound. Now, the router logs, they record all incoming and outgoing traffic. They have the rules that are set up to allow or disallow the traffic. And you can also, by using these, you can resolve the path that a transmitted email has taken. You can also use the firewall logs, which can use to be filtered email traffic. You can also use text editors or specialized tools to view this information. Now, email servers, that's a little software that uses email protocols for its services. Now, the goal of as a digital forensic investigator is not to learn how a particular email server works, but how to retrieve information about emails during an investigation. So, as I said, the email server is loaded with software, uses the email protocol for its services, maintains a log that you can examine, and you can use that log inside of your investigation. The email servers, or the storages, they're either going to be stored in a database or a flat file system. Now, some systems have logs that are going to be enabled by default. Others, you may have to have them configured to save the log, so you need the administrator to turn them on. Logs can work on continuous and circular modes. Circular mode will save valuable server space, storage space, but it does overwrite information that cannot be recovered during an investigation. Now, some parts of the log that or the email logs can be used for. Can be used for the email messages as an account received, the sending IP address, the email contents, the receiving date, or receiving and reading date and time, system-specific information. When you're conducting an investigation, you want to make sure you contact the suspect's network email administrator as soon as possible. And you can actually use the servers. Servers can recover deleted emails from time to time. So this is something that maybe you could use similar to the deletion of files on a hard drive to recover that email. Not all the time can emails be recovered, though. All right, so what we're looking at now is a couple of different commands. These are common Unix email servers commands. To access this, for example, the etc/sendmail.cf is a configuration file for sending an email. The syslog.config includes email logging instructions. So it specifies how and which events send mail logs. Postfix has two configuration files, which is a master.cf and main.cf. So these are just some commands that you should be familiar with when accessing Unix email server. Now, you'll notice that in the file system with Unix, the / that's going to be used in the Unix Linux file path, while Windows is going to use a \. When we're looking at logs, the command of var log mail log that records SMTP, POP3, and IMAP4 communications. This will contain the IP address and timestamps, and you can use that to compare with the email the victim has received. The default location for storing the log files will be in the variable log. This can be changed by an administrator, so you can use the find and locate command to locate the log files. Now, the Microsoft email server logs, first Microsoft is going to use the Exchange server. It's a database email server based on the Microsoft Extensible Storage Engine. The most useful files in an investigation, the .edb files or database files, checkpoint files, and your temporary files. The information store files, the database files will be stored in the star.edb. A couple of different files that you will have, main log files for the Microsoft Exchange server. They include the transaction logs, which they keep track of changes to its data. The checkpoints, it marks the last point at which a database is written to a disk. Temporary files are used to created to prevent loss when the server is busy converting binary data to readable text. If you need to retrieve log files created by the Exchange, and they're used the Windows PowerShell commandlet get transactions logs stats.ps1-together. The tracking log, that's an Exchange server log that tracks messages. So you may also need the diagnostic logs or troubleshooting logs that can aid you in the investigation as well. You see an example of an event, a log in an event viewer. We have the severity level. And here you're also showing out where the find the event ID. Now, there are many different tools that we use for email investigations. These include these listed on the screen. These tools, along with these two here, they allow you to find email database files, personal email files, offline storage files, and also your log files. Now, one of the advantages of using tools is you don't need to know how the email server or email client operates to extract data from these computers. Data recovery tools will do this work for you. Now, after you compare email logs with the message, one of the things you should do is verify the email's account, message ID, IP address, and the date and timestamp to determine whether there's enough evidence for a warrant. It's important to document every step in the investigation process as well. For example, if you create an image, you want to document that process, the procedure, and tools that you use. Also, with some tools, you can scan email databases files on a suspect's Windows computer, locate any emails the suspect has deleted, and restore them to their original state. Magnet Axiom is designed to combine evidence retrieval from PCs, mobile devices, and the cloud. You can see the activity on page 472 to how you walk through the magnet axiom to recover emails. The screenshot here shows you the OS forensics recover emails. You can also use hex editors to carve email messages. So few vendors have products for analyzing email systems other than Microsoft's. So the inbox format that stores emails in a flat plain text files. The multi-purpose internet extension format. This is used by vendor unique email file systems such as Microsoft. So it is a specification for formatting non-ASCII messages. This is something such as graphics, audio, and video for transmission over the internet. So next couple of screens is going to show you using a hex editor. So this is the beginning of an email from a Terry Sadler showing the ending position of the same email. And then we'll see an example of that email, how it will look in Notepad. All right, there are some computer forensic tools we use to reconstruct .pst files and messages such as Magnet, Axiom, OS Forensics, X-Wave Forensics, Access Data, FTK. So you may need to use one of those tools to reconstruct that file and message. Now, with these advanced forensic tools, any deleted .pst files can be partially or completely recovered. The scan pst.ext recovery file, this is something that comes with Microsoft Office. It can be used to repair OST files as well as PST files. The guidance software, in case from guidance software and other email recovery tools, can be used to reconstruct email data in Outlook. A few of them we see on the screen. Data Newman Outlook Repair is another tool that you can use as well. So look at an email case study. So in the Enron case, they had 10,000 emails. more than 1,000 emails will contain information, personal information. So you had 60 credit card numbers. They have, that is in the wrong place. They have 60 that will be containing credit card numbers. 572 of those that were examined contained thousands of social security numbers and other identity numbers. You had birth dates. 532 contained information of highly personal nature, such as medical or legal matters. So when they went through the Enron case years ago, this was the information that was found. Now, digital forensics can also be applied to social media communications. An online social network, they're used to conduct businesses, brag about criminal activities, raise money, use them to have class discussions. Online social networks, this is just a term that's used by researchers for social media. Now, some of the evidence you can find on social media, it can contain evidence of cyberbullying or witness tampering, a company's position on an issue, whether intellectual property rights have been violated. You can also find out who posted information and when. Social medias can often either verify a party's claim. You do have multiple jurisdictions with social media. It may even cross national borders. So investigators should obtain a warrant. They must obtain a warrant or subpoena in order to obtain information from social networks. These include social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other online social media networks. Now, if it involves immediate danger, law enforcement can file an emergency request for a warrant. The social media is also on our mobile devices. That's something that's used for a majority of the social network clients. Now, with this, the evidence artifacts, they're going to vary depending on social media channel and the device. For example, in the study they've done, that iPhone and Android devices, they yielded the most information. And much of that data was stored in an SQLite database. So on iPhones, the SQLite database was found, for Facebook, was found that lists friends, their ID numbers, phone numbers, as well as files that tracked all uploads, including pictures. The similar databases were found on Twitter. When we're talking about Android devices, Facebook friends were found in the contacts list because the devices were synced with Facebook. So it said iPhones and Android devices yielded the most information. There are tools for social media investigations that are being developed. There are not that many tools that are available right now. There are also many questions about how information in these tools gather can be used in court or arbitration. Social media forensic software, using that right now might also require getting the permission of people whose information is being examined. Now, many online social network tools, they use the customized web crawlers that find the data, but for that they take too long to find information that make them really efficient. So in this chapter, we did discuss the types of email investigation, the type of email we may be looking through. We've discussed different tools for email, examine the header for email messages. We also talked about social media networks and maybe having the need for searching the social media communications on mobile users, and that the technology is coming, that social media forensic tools has evolved with technology, and that many forensic suites have built-in social media tools. For the mobile devices, it's still in development.